Hey, how's it going, everybody? Gabriel, Santiago here. So this is the Speaking of Harmony podcast, and this is episode 44. All right, before we go into today's subject, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the little bell thing. This is all my social media stuff. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps a lot with the video. And don't forget to subscribe to the mailing list. The information is here in the description of the video. All right, chords again. This time I'm going to talk about a chord that people have been asking me to talk about a lot, and it's a chord that I use a lot. So hence we take some time to specifically address that chord and how I play it, how do I move around and kind of try to create some different sounds and colors, right? The famous shape that I use, this one, right? Right? It's something that I called adjacent fifth, right? For me, it's more than a chord. For me, it's just a shape that I use, right? What is adjacent fifth, right? Well, if you think about this particular shape, right? You see that there are two fifth, interval of fifth, right? So I have this fifth here, and I have this fifth here, and they're together, right? So if you have two fifths like this, right? You have this pair of fifth and you have this pair of fifth, right? Going adjacent like this. See? That's the adjacent forms and shapes that I'm talking about. So you have a shape, a fifth here, and then you have another fifth here. So, right? So that's why I call adjacent fifth. Because for me, it's more than a chord. I can use as a shape for me. And I can use it as a chord. I can apply, harmonic context and inside a tonal kind of framework, yes, and you see me doing a lot of that stuff, but I can also use in different settings. Use that fifth quality to be more in the kind of quintal harmony kind of territory in writing some other type of stuff, and I'll show you how to do that, right? So let's just do the sort of like the most common usage, at least that I do, for this chord in the context of chords and progressions and stuff like that, right? So some people like to see this chord as they call drop two or an inversion of a chord, right? The way a minor ninth chord is voiced, or a major seven or minor whatever, right? So let's say if you have A as our root, right? And this shape here, boom. If I had to label this chord to you, boom, what chord is that? Well, it's an A minor 9 to me, right? It has the 7th and the 9th, A minor 9th. Great. And then some people like to refer to the voicing of the chord, and they call it drop 2 or whatever they call that. It all works. Whatever works for you, right? So I like to use this chord in a minor kind of situation like this, right? But for me, it's either the shape I use as a, like the top note of that voicing, of that shape, right? Let's say this note. The tip I would give you is that it can work as a fifth of a minor chord, like boom, boom, right? Boom, that's it. Or it can also be a third of a major chord, right? That note, that top note of the voicing it could be a third of a major chord. For instance, if I keep the same shape here, it's the third of C, right? So I can play C major 7 with this particular voicing, right? Hard to do this shape here, right? I can play like this. I can do here, same voicing in a darker color, right? Here. So if I take, let's say, E, for instance, right, as a root for the bass, I can do that top note, not the top, the actually lower note. I have been saying wrong. The lower note of the voicing as a third of a major chord. So here we go, right? That's E major 7. And I can also have that same shape as that down, the lower note being the fifth of a minor chord. So then in E would be B, right? Then you have E minor 9, right? So that's a fast and efficient way to use this shape as a chord, right? In a context of a chord, for instance. And you can do that in this group of strings, right? And if you go down, in the group, you can do the same voicing, right? And if you go and you can do it here too, like even this group here, and I can probably do it here too, but we're not gonna do that, right? So here, here, here. See, you got three different type of colors, darker and like brighter, right? And they scale to brighter to darker. Okay, cool. So I can use that in these two types of chords. So okay, let's say we're playing you know, I don't know, whatever sequence we can think of right now. C major, right? C major, F minor. How can I voice this using that shape, right? Okay. We can use that. Remember the tip. There you go. That bottom note is the third of the chord. So here I have my major chord. So I can place it like this. And then in a minor chord, that bottom note is the fifth of a minor chord. So if I'm going to F minor, this is my bottom, right? My bottom note. So I have this voicing, right? With the bass. Hard to do with the bass here, right? But you got the idea. F, right? And then, cool. So I could, let's say, if I'm comping, right, and I want to use this call, I can do. Pretending there's a bass player, right? Right? So this is one way to use it, right? It's a very straightforward, simple way to use this kind of chords as a major chord, as a minor chord, right? All right. Now we can use it as a shape, as I said, as a color, right? But you can use also as inversions of other chords, right? For instance, you know, remember when I had the major situation, let's say D major, right? So D major 7, right? I want to play that shape. There we go, right? Third, the bottom note is the third of the major chord. Right? Great. But I can also use that as an inversion of the chord. For instance, if I have a D major over A, so I can put the bass on A. So I have a nice touch to that, right? So I can use it as a nice, like, arriving chord. Even though I'm not gonna play really this kind of chord, I will just kind of start coloring the harmony a little bit and get a very nice, you know, sort of very original sound. It sounds like itself, like it's not something you expect. So you can do like keep things still kind of suspended instead of resolving because of the inversion, right? I can use that as an element of surprise kind of thing. For instance, let's say like resolving into a surprise kind of situation that I'm not expecting, right? For instance. Let's think of a progression that I can use that. Right? I can use that, let's say, the same thing that I was going to resolve into D major, right? How about if I resolve in B major? Ah, nice cadence, huh? Deceptive cadence. How about this? Like... Nice, huh? Nice voice. That's what people used to call the backdoor cadence, right? When you have a, if you're in B major, it would be 4 flat 7 and then going to 1, right? But I was in D major, don't forget, right? I was on 2 5 1 of D major. The B is the element of surprise, right? So and I use the shape to really kind of reinforce that oddness, that surprise, right? So that's the way you can use to reinforce those kind of cadences and progressions, to use that shape that way, right? Another way you can use is to just parallelly use the shape at will as the color of the shape. So I can use, let's say, an A pedal. Right? So I can use it this way. I can just kind of take the shape and just kind of move around at will over a pedal, right? So I'm just pedaling, and of course there are implications to what kind of harmony I am getting as an end result here, right? Do minor, D major over A, D minor over A, right? A major 7, implications, but I am not really worried about using that shape and just looking for a particular chord. I'm just using a will to just get that color out, right? Because a shape is a color, right? And going to that same thread, I can go into the more adjacent fifth kind of thinking behind it. So if you think about this as being 2 fifths that complement each other, I can take the same thinking and sort of expand the thinking. So I can do a chord like this, for instance. Ooh. There is also an adjacent fifth chord, but that chord is not really, I'm not coming from it from a like a tonal perspective or progression, diatonic thing. I'm coming from a adjacent fifth kind of principle where I have a fifth, then another fifth, so that's already, see? Right, 2 fifths together, and then I keep stacking adjacent fifths, so, and then, and then, so I have 4, no, I have 3 pairs of fifth here. I have, right? Woohoo! Got the idea? See how different a color gets? So this is not like a B flat or whatever, minor or a D flat major thing. It's just I'm thinking of stacked fifth in adjacent manner. So I'm using, right? Isn't that cool? Right? I can keep going, stacking adjacent fifth, right? So then you get in the total different territory. So I get this kind of color, right? So a super adjacent fifth chord. So I can do on the guitar, and the piano is super clear to do it. Fifth, 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 fifth. So I had 4 pairs of fifths, see? See, I can do that here. Or here. Here, if I can continue like to fifth, but 5 pairs or whatever, right? So I get the idea here. I can get this strange sound, like the result of me not thinking diatonically about chord formation, just thinking of the intervals of the fifth. So I'm getting adjacent fifth. So that's a color to explore, right? I'm gonna be linking here in the description and also in the card a video of a symphonic piece of mine. It's called River of Memory, where I explore this part of the adjacent fifth stuff. I have this piece for Symphony Orchestra, so you can see that sound happening in the strings, and it's beautiful. So, and I'm really expanding that kind of idea of intervals and adjacent fifths. So that's more like the orchestral kind of composition side. But if you're interested about the sound and how you can use it, check out the piece on the card and the description, right? So this is, a few applications of the chord. There are more, but I'm gonna be focusing on these particular ones that you can use in the guitar, and just coming from these different perspectives, right? So you can, to review that, you can use as just a diatonic thing of a major chord or minor chord, and you can use as a pedal, helping with the deceptive cadence when you go, help to like reinforce that different outcome of the chord, just having the voice, or just parallelly using a will as a color, and also using as a stacked fifth in kind of adjacent manner like I did here. The super open voicings, right? You can orchestrate, and it's beautiful. Harder on the guitar, but beautiful orchestrated and piano and stuff like that. So I hope you liked it. I know you guys love this chord. I hope you love it as much as I do, because I use it a lot. And there's other tricks I have in terms of harmony, particular things I use in voicing. I have this auto voicing I use a lot, the 1-2-5-7 shape that I'm going probably through some other episodes and stuff. But I hope you like this one. And before I go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the little bell thing notification. This is all my social media stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to the mailing list. And I see you the next video. Thank you very much.